Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off this comprehensive lecture series on the reproductive system. Today, we'll explore the structure, function, and the continuity of life through 6 detailed modules and 30 engaging slides. This course will give you a complete overview of how the reproductive system plays a vital role in sustaining life. So, let's get started and dive into this fascinating topic together. Today, we're going to explore both male and female reproductive anatomy in detail, so we can understand how each system is structured and functions. We'll look at how gametes, sperm and eggs, are produced, how fertilization occurs, and how hormonal regulation controls these processes. It's also important to see how the reproductive system works hand in hand with the endocrine system to regulate various functions. We'll examine the physiological changes that happen throughout the lifespan, including the key stage of puberty, when many of these processes become active. I'll identify and explain the key reproductive structures and how they contribute to reproductive processes. Understanding these systems isn't just about reproduction itself. It's also about recognizing how they impact overall health. This course aims to give you a comprehensive understanding of the human reproductive system, covering its structure, its functions, and its vital role in human development and the continuation of our species. Let's take a closer look at the foundations of human reproduction and get an overall system overview. In this section, we'll explore the basic principles that underpin how humans reproduce and understand the key components of the reproductive system. This is the starting point for appreciating how complex and well-coordinated this process really is. Throughout this module, we'll see how each part plays a crucial role in ensuring reproduction is successful. By understanding these fundamentals, we'll be better equipped to grasp the more detailed mechanisms we'll discuss later. So, think of this as building a solid foundation for everything else in our study of human reproduction. This slide covers the overview of the reproductive system, which is a vital part of our biology. Now, it's important to understand that, unlike other body systems, the reproductive system isn't essential for an individual's immediate survival. However, it plays a critical role in ensuring the survival of the species as a whole. One key point is that it enables genetic diversity through sexual reproduction. This diversity is crucial for adapting to changing environments and maintaining a healthy gene pool. The reproductive system also works closely with the endocrine and nervous systems, coordinating complex processes like hormone production and reproductive behaviors. When we talk about its biological significance, we focus on the gonads. These are the primary reproductive organs. They produce gametes, which are the reproductive cells and hormones that regulate various functions. The reproductive tract includes ducts that transport these gametes and support embryo development, while accessory glands and external genitalia facilitate reproduction itself. The main components of this system include the production of sex cells, or gametes, which are essential for species continuation. It also involves the secretion of hormones that influence growth, development, and the development of sexual characteristics. Moreover, it supports embryonic development and nurtures offspring after conception. As for the primary functions, this system is responsible for generating and delivering sex cells, producing hormones that regulate physical and reproductive traits, and supporting the development and nurturing of the next generation. Overall, the reproductive system is not just about making babies. It's about sustaining life across generations and ensuring the continuation of our species. Let's take a closer look at the reproductive systems, starting with the female system. The female reproductive system primarily involves internal organs like the ovaries and the uterus. These organs are responsible for producing ova, or eggs, on a monthly cycle during the reproductive years. This cycle is quite complex and involves hormonal fluctuations that prepare the body for potential pregnancy. The key hormones here are estrogen and progesterone, which regulate the cycle and create the ideal environment for fertilization and fetal development if conception occurs. On the other hand, the male reproductive system is mainly external, involving organs like the testes and penis. Unlike the female system, males produce sperm continuously starting from puberty, which means they are always capable of fertilization. Their primary role is delivering these gametes into the female reproductive tract. The dominant hormone here is testosterone, which drives the development of male secondary sexual characteristics and regulates reproductive functions. Compared to females, the male reproductive system is somewhat simpler in terms of regulation, with a more straightforward, cyclical process. This distinction between the two systems highlights how each is uniquely adapted to their reproductive roles. Overall, these differences are fundamental to understanding human reproduction and how each system contributes to the continuity of life. Let's talk about how reproductive hormones influence various aspects of our health. These hormones don't just control reproduction, they also impact metabolism, bone density, and even cardiovascular health. It's fascinating how interconnected these systems are. Now, at the core of hormonal regulation is the hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal axis. This system uses feedback loops to keep hormone levels in balance. Essentially, when hormone levels rise or fall, these loops help adjust production to maintain stability. It's a finely tuned system that keeps everything running smoothly. Disruptions in reproductive hormones can have broader effects too. Changes in hormone levels can influence mood, energy levels, and overall well-being. That's why maintaining hormonal balance is so important for overall health. The reproductive system doesn't work in isolation. It interacts closely with the immune, circulatory, and nervous systems, highlighting its role within the larger network of our body's systems. Connecting this to homeostasis, sexual reproduction involves combining genetic material from two parents, which increases genetic diversity. This diversity is vital for the resilience of our species. The reproductive system also supports embryonic development through processes like implantation and placental formation. These steps are crucial for nourishing and protecting the developing fetus. During puberty, hormones drive the development of secondary sexual characteristics, things like facial hair, breast development, and deeper voices. These changes mark the transition into reproductive maturity. Throughout life, the reproductive system coordinates complex events, from gametogenesis, which is the formation of eggs and sperm, all the way to birth. It's a remarkably intricate process that underscores the importance of this system in human development and continuity. All these points tie back to our overall theme. Reproduction and homeostasis are deeply interconnected, ensuring the stability and continuity of life across generations. Now, let's take a closer look at some key terms related to reproductive development. First, we have puberty, which is the developmental stage during which the reproductive organs mature and secondary sex characteristics appear. This is a crucial phase because it marks the transition from childhood to reproductive maturity. Next, there's menarche, which specifically refers to the onset of a girl's first menstrual period. This event signals that she is now capable of reproductive functions, marking the beginning of female reproductive maturity. Moving on, gestation is the period of embryonic and fetal development within the uterus. In humans, this lasts about 40 weeks, and during this time, the embryo and later the fetus develop and grow. Then we have the zygote, which is a fertilized egg formed when a sperm and an ovum unite. The zygote contains the full set of 46 chromosomes, combining genetic material from both parents, and is the very first stage of a new individual. Finally, let's talk about gametes. These are the reproductive cells, sperm in males and ova, or eggs in females. They carry half the genetic information needed to form a new organism. And to complete the picture, the gonads, testes in males and ovaries in females, are the primary sex organs. They produce the gametes and secrete hormones that regulate reproductive functions. Understanding these basic terms sets a strong foundation for grasping how human reproduction works, which is central to our overall theme of development and biological processes. Let's take a closer look at the structure, sperm production, and hormonal regulation of the male reproductive system. First, understanding the anatomy is essential because each part has a specific role in supporting reproductive function. The testes, for example, are where sperm production actually occurs, and they also produce testosterone, the key hormone responsible for male secondary sexual characteristics. Moving on to sperm production, this process is called spermatogenesis, and it happens within the seminiferous tubules of the testes. It's a continuous process that starts at puberty and continues throughout life. Spermatogenesis is quite efficient and involves several stages, culminating in mature sperm capable of fertilization. Now, hormonal regulation is what keeps this entire system functioning smoothly. The hypothalamus releases GnRH, which stimulates the pituitary gland to produce LH and FSH. LH then prompts the testes to produce testosterone, while FSH supports the process of spermatogenesis. This hormonal interplay not only regulates sperm production, but also maintains the overall health and function of the male reproductive system. Connecting this to the overall theme, understanding these components helps us appreciate how precisely the male reproductive system is designed to produce viable sperm and support reproductive health. It's a finely tuned system where structure, function, and regulation come together seamlessly. Let's start by looking at the structure of the penis. It contains erectile tissue, which includes the corpus cavernosum and the corpus spongiosum. These tissues fill with blood during an erection, allowing the penis to become firm. The glans penis, which is the sensitive tip, is covered by the prepuce or foreskin. An erection occurs when there is increased blood flow to these erectile tissues, enabling sexual activity. During intercourse, the penis delivers semen into the female reproductive tract, which is essential for reproduction. Moving to the external organs, the epididymis is a coiled tube where sperm mature and are stored. Sperm typically stay here for about 2 to 3 weeks. The vas deferens is a muscular tube that transports sperm from the epididymis up toward the ejaculatory duct. The ejaculatory duct is formed when the vas deferens joins with the duct from the seminal vesicle. The urethra then serves as a shared pathway, carrying both urine and semen, but not at the same time. Now let's talk about the duct system. The testes are paired oval organs housed in the scrotum, which is outside the main body cavity. This positioning is critical because the scrotum helps maintain the testes at about 2 to 3 degrees Celsius below core body temperature. This cooler environment is vital for optimal spermatogenesis, or sperm production. Inside the testes, the seminiferous tubules are the actual sites where sperm are produced. Additionally, interstitial cells, also known as Leydig cells, produce testosterone, which is essential for male secondary sexual characteristics and reproductive functions. Finally, to tie everything together, the testes and scrotum work as a coordinated system. The testes generate sperm and testosterone, while the scrotum provides a protective, temperature-regulated environment. This structure and function relationship is fundamental to male reproductive health and fertility. Let's walk through the process of spermatogenesis, starting with the spermatogonia. These are diploid stem cells containing 46 chromosomes located at the basement membrane of the seminiferous tubules. They undergo mitotic division to maintain the stem cell pool, ensuring a continuous supply of cells for sperm production. Next, some of these spermatogonia grow into primary spermatocytes. These are larger cells that will undergo the first meiotic division, called meiosis I. As a result, each primary spermatocyte produces 2 haploid secondary spermatocytes, each containing 23 chromosomes. Then, each secondary spermatocyte quickly undergoes meiosis II, which results in the formation of 2 spermatids per secondary spermatocyte. This means from one spermatogonium, we ultimately get 4 spermatids. Finally, these spermatids undergo a remarkable transformation during spermiogenesis. They develop an acrosome, which is crucial for fertilization, condense their nucleus to streamline their head, grow a flagellum for motility, and shed excess cytoplasm. Through this process, they become mature spermatozoa ready to fertilize an egg. This entire sequence, from spermatogonia to mature sperm, is essential for male fertility and showcases the complex, highly organized nature of sperm production. Now, let's take a closer look at the bulbourethral glands, also known as Cowper's glands. These are small, pea-sized structures located beneath the prostate and just inferior to the bladder. Their main role is to secrete a clear, alkaline mucus right before ejaculation. This mucus serves a few important functions. It neutralizes any residual acidic urine in the urethra, which helps protect the sperm as they pass through. Additionally, it provides lubrication for the tip of the penis during arousal, making the process smoother and more comfortable. Moving on, the bulbourethral glands contribute about 25 to 30% of the seminal fluid. Interestingly, the fluid they produce is slightly acidic and milky in appearance, containing citric acid and proteolytic enzymes. One important enzyme is PSA, or prostate-specific antigen, which helps liquefy the semen after ejaculation, ensuring the sperm can move freely. Next, let's discuss the prostate gland. This walnut-sized gland is located just below the bladder and is a major contributor to semen volume, about 60%, in fact. The prostate produces an alkaline fluid rich in fructose, which provides energy for the sperm, supporting their motility as they travel through the female reproductive tract. The prostate also secretes prostaglandins, which are hormone-like substances that stimulate contractions in the female reproductive system, aiding sperm movement. Additionally, it produces clotting proteins that temporarily coagulate semen after ejaculation, helping it stay within the female reproductive tract initially. Lastly, the seminal vesicles are another set of accessory glands that significantly influence semen composition. They contribute a large portion of the seminal fluid, about 60%, and produce a thick, yellowish fluid rich in fructose. This provides vital energy for the sperm. They also secrete prostaglandins that can stimulate contractions in the female reproductive tract, facilitating sperm transport. So, in summary, these glands, bulbourethral, prostate, and seminal vesicles, work together to produce semen, each contributing specific components that support sperm survival, motility, and successful fertilization. Let's delve into Module 2, which focuses on hormonal regulation. The primary androgen responsible for male sexual development is testosterone. It plays a crucial role not only in initiating male secondary sex characteristics like facial hair, a deeper voice, and increased muscle mass, but also in maintaining libido and sexual function throughout adult life. During puberty, testosterone promotes protein synthesis and bone growth, supporting overall growth and development. An interesting aspect of hormonal regulation involves inhibin, which is produced by Sertoli cells in the testes. Inhibin provides negative feedback specifically to FSH, helping to regulate spermatogenesis and maintain balance within the reproductive system. Now, focusing on testosterone effects, the process begins with the hypothalamus releasing GnRH, or gonadotropin-releasing hormone, in a pulsatile manner. This pulsatile release is key to normal function. GnRH then stimulates the anterior pituitary to secrete FSH and LH. Luteinizing hormone, or LH, acts on Leydig cells in the testes to stimulate the production of testosterone. Meanwhile, FSH acts on Sertoli cells to support spermatogenesis, the process of sperm production. An important point to remember is the negative feedback loop. When testosterone levels rise, they inhibit the release of GnRH and LH from the hypothalamus and pituitary. This feedback mechanism helps maintain hormone levels within a healthy range. All of this fits into the broader hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is essential for the hormonal regulation of male reproduction. Understanding this axis helps us see how finely tuned and interconnected these hormonal signals are, ensuring proper development, function, and regulation of the male reproductive system. Now, let's take a closer look at ovarian function, the uterine cycle, and how hormonal regulation orchestrates these processes. The female reproductive system's anatomy is quite intricate but beautifully coordinated. The ovaries are responsible for producing eggs and hormones like estrogen and progesterone, which are essential for regulating the cycle. The uterine cycle, on the other hand, involves changes in the lining of the uterus, preparing it for possible pregnancy each month. This cycle is divided into phases: the menstrual phase, the proliferative phase, and the secretory phase, each driven by fluctuating hormone levels. Hormonal regulation is the key player here, with hormones such as GnRH from the hypothalamus stimulating the release of LH and FSH from the pituitary. These, in turn, influence ovarian activity and hormone secretion, creating a feedback loop that maintains the cycle's timing and coordination. Understanding this complex interplay helps us appreciate how the female reproductive system functions seamlessly to support reproduction. It's a perfect example of how anatomy and hormonal regulation work together in harmony. Let's take a closer look at the structure of the female reproductive organs. The uterus, for example, is a pear-shaped muscular organ composed of 3 distinct layers: the outer perimetrium, the middle myometrium, and the innermost endometrium. The endometrium is particularly important because it is shed during menstruation and then rebuilt each cycle, preparing the uterus for possible pregnancy. Moving on to the cervix, which connects the uterus to the vagina. The cervix produces mucus that changes throughout the menstrual cycle, playing a key role in fertility and conception. The vagina itself serves 2 main purposes. It acts as the birth canal during delivery and receives sperm during intercourse. Now, focusing on the fallopian tubes, also called uterine tubes or oviducts. These are about 10 to 12 centimeters long and are paired, almond-shaped organs located in the pelvic cavity. The fimbriae, which are finger-like projections at the end of the tubes, sweep the ovulated egg into the tube. Fertilization usually occurs in the ampulla, which is the widest section of the tube. From there, ciliated epithelium and peristalsis work together to move the egg toward the uterus. Finally, let's discuss the ovaries. These are paired, almond-shaped organs that sit in the pelvic cavity. They produce ova, or eggs, through a process called oogenesis, which begins even before birth. The ovaries also secrete the hormones estrogen and progesterone, which are essential for regulating the menstrual cycle and maintaining female reproductive health. Inside the ovaries, follicles develop at various stages, each containing immature eggs. Understanding these structures and their functions helps us see the incredible complexity of the female reproductive system and how all these parts work together in the reproductive process. At birth, females have approximately 1 to 2 million primordial follicles, which are the basic units of female reproductive potential. By the time she reaches puberty, that number decreases significantly to about 300,000 to 400,000 remaining follicles. Interestingly, out of all these follicles, only around 400 will actually ovulate during a woman's entire reproductive lifetime. Each month during the reproductive years, a group of follicles starts to develop, but usually only one becomes dominant. This dominant follicle fully matures and releases its oocyte during ovulation, which is a carefully timed event in the cycle. Now, the ovarian cycle itself has 3 main phases. First, there's the follicular phase, where the follicles develop and grow. Then comes ovulation, triggered by a surge in luteinizing hormone, or LH, which causes the mature egg to be released. After that, we enter the luteal phase, where the remaining follicle transforms into the corpus luteum, which secretes progesterone to prepare the endometrium, the lining of the uterus, for possible implantation. If fertilization doesn't happen, the corpus luteum degenerates into a structure called the corpus albicans, leading to a drop in progesterone levels. This decline triggers menstruation, and the cycle begins anew. It's also important to understand that oocytes are arrested in prophase I of meiosis from fetal development until ovulation. When ovulation occurs, meiosis I completes, but meiosis II only finishes if fertilization takes place. Overall, the ovarian cycle plays a crucial role in controlling egg maturation, release, and hormonal preparation for pregnancy, ensuring that the reproductive process is tightly regulated and coordinated. Now, let's take a closer look at the role of the uterus in supporting pregnancy. The endometrium, which is the innermost lining, plays a crucial role here. It thickens and becomes highly vascularized in preparation for embryo implantation, providing the necessary environment for the fertilized egg to embed and grow. Once implantation occurs, the placenta begins to develop from both maternal and fetal tissues, acting as the vital interface for gas exchange, nutrient delivery, and waste removal between mother and fetus. As pregnancy progresses, the uterus undergoes dramatic expansion, increasing from about 60 grams to roughly 1,000 grams at term to accommodate the growing baby. Supporting this process are the three main layers of the uterine wall. The outermost perimetrium offers structural support through its serous layer, while the thick muscular myometrium is responsible for powerful contractions during labor, helping to deliver the baby. The innermost layer, the endometrium, is divided into two parts: the functional layer, which is shed during menstruation, and the basal layer, which regenerates the functional layer each cycle. A rich blood supply via the uterine arteries ensures that the developing fetus receives adequate nutrients and oxygen throughout pregnancy. Altogether, this complex structure and function of the uterus are essential for supporting and sustaining pregnancy from implantation through delivery, highlighting its vital role in reproductive health. Today, let's look at the days 15 to 28 of the menstrual cycle, which is known as the luteal phase. During this time, the corpus luteum, which forms after ovulation, secretes progesterone. This hormone is crucial because it maintains the endometrium in its secretory phase, preparing the uterus for potential implantation. If fertilization doesn't occur, the corpus luteum begins to degenerate, leading to a drop in progesterone levels. This decline triggers menstruation, and the cycle starts anew. Now, to connect this to what we've discussed earlier, the luteal phase is a key part of the overall cycle because it ensures the endometrial lining stays receptive for a fertilized egg. It's fascinating how these hormonal shifts coordinate the reproductive process so precisely. So, in essence, the luteal phase sustains the environment necessary for early pregnancy. But if pregnancy doesn't happen, the system resets with menstruation. Now, let's delve into the roles of estrogen and progesterone in female reproductive regulation. Estrogen primarily promotes the proliferation of the endometrial lining, which is essential for preparing the uterus for potential pregnancy. It also plays a key role in developing secondary sexual characteristics and maintaining bone health. On the other hand, progesterone prepares the endometrium for implantation and helps sustain pregnancy once it occurs. It also inhibits uterine contractions that could otherwise disrupt the developing embryo. Both of these hormones are critical in regulating the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis through intricate feedback mechanisms. When ovarian hormone levels decline if pregnancy doesn't happen, this decline triggers menstruation. During pregnancy, human chorionic gonadotropin, or HCG, takes over by maintaining the corpus luteum until the placenta can produce sufficient hormones on its own. Now, let's look at their specific roles in the hormonal cascade. The hypothalamus secretes gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GnRH, which stimulates the anterior pituitary to release FSH and LH. During the follicular phase, FSH promotes follicle growth and stimulates estrogen production. As estrogen levels rise, they initially exert negative feedback on the hypothalamus and pituitary. However, once estrogen reaches a high enough level, this feedback switches to positive, leading to a surge in LH. That LH surge is what triggers ovulation and stimulates the formation of the corpus luteum, which then produces progesterone to maintain the endometrium. So, in summary, this hormonal cascade is a finely tuned system that drives the entire reproductive process, highlighting how these hormones work together to regulate ovulation, pregnancy, and menstruation. Today, we're going to explore the journey from gamete formation to the earliest stages of new life. This process begins with gametogenesis, which is how sperm and eggs are produced. It's a highly regulated process that ensures each gamete carries the right genetic information. Next, we'll look at fertilization, the moment when a sperm cell meets an egg, leading to the formation of a zygote. This is a critical step because it combines genetic material from both parents, setting the foundation for development. Throughout this module, we'll see how these early reproductive events are essential for understanding human development and reproductive health. They are the starting point of the complex process that ultimately results in a new individual. So, understanding gametogenesis and fertilization helps us grasp the beginning of life's journey. Through meiosis, the diploid spermatogonium, which has 46 chromosomes, undergoes a special division process to produce haploid spermatozoa with just 23 chromosomes. This reduction is crucial because it ensures that when fertilization occurs, the resulting zygote will have the correct number of chromosomes. A healthy male can produce approximately 200 to 300 million sperm each day. This high quantity highlights how vital continuous spermatogenesis is for maintaining fertility and reproductive potential. The entire process, from spermatogonium to mature sperm, takes about 64 to 74 days inside the seminiferous tubules of the testes. After that, the sperm undergo additional maturation in the epididymis, which takes roughly 12 days. This ongoing cycle is what allows males to produce a steady supply of viable gametes, reinforcing the importance of spermatogenesis in reproductive health and overall fertility. Let's talk about oogenesis, the process of egg formation, and how it fits into overall reproductive biology. First, during fetal development, oogonia, which are the precursor cells, undergo mitosis to produce primary oocytes. These primary oocytes then enter meiosis I and arrest in prophase I, meaning they pause at a specific stage until puberty. At this point, each primary oocyte is surrounded by a primordial follicle, which provides support and nutrients. As puberty begins, hormonal signals, particularly follicle-stimulating hormone or FSH, come into play. These signals recruit follicles each menstrual cycle. The primary oocyte inside each follicle continues to grow and is surrounded by granulosa cells, which help nourish it. Usually, one dominant follicle emerges during each cycle, becoming the one most likely to ovulate. Moving toward ovulation, the primary oocyte completes meiosis I just before it's released. This results in a large secondary oocyte and a small first polar body, which is a byproduct of cell division. The secondary oocyte is then released during ovulation and enters metaphase II, where it arrests until fertilization. Now about fertilization. When sperm penetrates the secondary oocyte, meiosis II is completed only if fertilization occurs. This process produces the mature ovum and a second polar body. The haploid nuclei of the egg and sperm then fuse, resulting in the formation of a diploid zygote that can develop into a new organism. So, to sum up, oogenesis is a carefully orchestrated process, starting before birth and continuing through reproductive years, with key steps involving cell division, follicle development, and hormonal regulation, all crucial for successful reproduction. Now, let's explore the fascinating process of fertilization. First, sperm undergo a process called capacitation, which happens in the female tract over about 6 to 8 hours. During this time, biochemical changes occur that destabilize the acrosomal membrane and hyperactivate the sperm's motility. This essentially prepares the sperm to penetrate the egg's protective layers. Next, when the sperm contacts the zona pellucida, the glycoprotein layer surrounding the oocyte, it triggers the acrosome reaction. The sperm releases enzymes like hyaluronidase and acrosin, which digest a path through this layer, allowing the sperm to reach the oocyte membrane. Once the sperm reaches the oocyte, specific receptor proteins on the sperm, such as izumo1, bind to receptors on the oocyte, like Juno. This binding is crucial because it triggers the fusion of the two cell membranes, allowing the sperm to enter. After sperm entry, the oocyte responds by releasing cortical granules. These contents modify the zona pellucida to prevent other sperm from entering, a safeguard against polyspermy, which could be detrimental to the embryo. Following entry, the sperm nucleus decondenses and forms the male pronucleus. Meanwhile, the oocyte completes its meiosis II, forming the female pronucleus. Both pronuclei then migrate toward the center of the cell. Finally, the maternal and paternal pronuclei merge in a process called syngamy. This restores the diploid chromosome number of 46 and creates a genetically unique zygote, marking the very beginning of a new organism. It's important to remember that fertilization most often occurs within the ampulla of the fallopian tube, which is the ideal site for this complex, yet beautifully coordinated process. Now, in week 3, the inner cell mass begins to differentiate into what we call the 3 primary germ layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. These layers are crucial because they will give rise to all the tissues and organs of the body. This process is a key milestone in embryonic development, setting the foundation for future growth. Moving on to gastrulation, which occurs roughly between days 6 to 10, the blastocyst attaches to and embeds itself into the endometrium, the lining of the uterus. During this stage, the trophoblast, which is the outer cell layer of the blastocyst, invades the uterine lining and establishes essential connections with maternal blood vessels. This invasion is vital because it allows nutrient and oxygen exchange, supporting the developing embryo. Before that, let's briefly revisit the earlier stages. By day 5, the developing zygote has transformed into a morula, which is a solid ball of cells. At this point, a fluid-filled cavity forms, turning the morula into a blastocyst. The blastocyst has an inner cell mass that will become the embryo, and the outer layer, known as the trophoblast, will develop into the placenta. Finally, it's important to understand that shortly after fertilization, within the first 24 hours, rapid cell divisions, called cleavage, begin. The zygote divides into 2, then 4, 8, and progressively more cells, creating what we call the morula. During this process, the cells become smaller with each division, but there's no actual growth in size yet, just division. This sets the stage for the complex processes that follow in early embryonic development. When it comes to biological factors influencing successful reproduction, several key elements come into play. First, nutrition plays a vital role. Ensuring adequate intake of vitamins like folate and zinc, along with a balanced diet, can really support fertility. Proper nutrition helps maintain hormonal balance and overall reproductive health. Stress is another critical factor. Chronic stress can disrupt the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, or HPG axis, mainly through elevated cortisol levels. This disruption can interfere with ovulation and sperm production, making stress management essential for those trying to conceive. Body weight also matters significantly. Both obesity and being underweight can upset hormonal balance, affecting fertility in men and women alike. Maintaining a healthy weight supports normal hormonal function and reproductive processes. Lifestyle choices such as smoking and excessive alcohol consumption are well known to impair fertility for both genders. They can damage reproductive cells and interfere with hormone regulation, so cutting back or quitting can make a big difference. Environmental and external factors are equally important. Endocrine disruptors like BPA and phthalates can interfere with hormone signaling, disrupting reproductive functions. Exposure to environmental toxins and pollutants may reduce the quality of gametes, which are the eggs and sperm. Temperature is another factor to consider, especially for men. Elevated scrotal temperature, often caused by tight clothing or heat exposure, can impair spermatogenesis, the process of sperm production. Additionally, radiation and certain chemicals may damage reproductive cells, further impacting fertility. Moving on to age, it's important to recognize that female fertility peaks in the early to mid-20s and then declines more sharply after 35. This natural decline highlights how age is a crucial biological factor. Sperm quality, including motility, morphology, and overall count, also plays a critical role in male fertility. These factors determine the sperm's ability to reach and fertilize the egg. Hormonal balance is fundamental as well. Proper regulation of the HPG axis ensures the right hormones are produced at the right times, supporting ovulation and sperm production. Finally, genetic factors can't be overlooked. Chromosomal abnormalities may prevent a viable pregnancy, making genetic screening and counseling important in some cases. All these biological factors are interconnected, and understanding them helps us grasp the complex nature of human reproduction and the importance of maintaining overall health to support fertility. Now, let's take a closer look at the endocrine control of reproductive development and function. This slide focuses on hormonal regulation and the reproductive cycles that are essential for normal reproductive health. As you can see, hormones play a central role in orchestrating the complex processes involved in reproduction. They act as messengers, coordinating development, maturation, and cycle regulation. Throughout this module, we've emphasized how hormonal signals integrate with other physiological systems to ensure reproductive success. Understanding these hormonal mechanisms is key to comprehending how reproductive health is maintained and what can go wrong when these processes are disrupted. So, as we move forward, keep in mind how these endocrine controls are fundamental to the entire reproductive system. Let's take a closer look at some of the key reproductive hormones and their roles. First, we have LH, which is produced by the anterior pituitary. In females, LH triggers ovulation and helps form the corpus luteum, which is essential for maintaining early pregnancy. In males, LH stimulates the Leydig cells in the testes to produce testosterone, the primary male sex hormone. Next is FSH, also from the anterior pituitary. In females, FSH promotes follicle development in the ovaries, preparing eggs for ovulation. In males, FSH supports Sertoli cells to facilitate spermatogenesis, the process of sperm production. Moving on to testosterone, which is mainly produced by the testes and to some extent the adrenal glands. Testosterone drives the development of male secondary sex characteristics like increased muscle mass, facial hair, and deepening of the voice. It also supports spermatogenesis and influences libido. Then there's progesterone, which is produced by the corpus luteum and the placenta. Its primary role is to prepare the endometrium, the lining of the uterus, for implantation of a fertilized egg. It also helps maintain pregnancy and inhibits uterine contractions during gestation. Finally, estrogen, produced mainly by the ovaries and the placenta. It develops female secondary sex characteristics, like breast development and wider hips. Estrogen also promotes the growth of the endometrial lining, regulates the menstrual cycle, and supports bone health. Understanding these hormones and their sources helps us see how the body orchestrates complex reproductive processes, from puberty to pregnancy. Now, let's take a closer look at feedback mechanisms in the female reproductive cycle. Although they are relatively rare, they are absolutely critical for proper regulation. One of the most important examples is what happens when estrogen levels rise above a certain threshold, roughly 200 picograms per milliliter for over 50 hours. When this occurs, the feedback loop switches from negative to positive. This switch is what triggers a massive surge in luteinizing hormone, or LH, which ultimately causes ovulation. This is actually one of the few instances of positive feedback in human physiology, making it quite unique. Once ovulation occurs, the source of estrogen is removed, and the LH surge is self-limiting. This means that as ovulation happens, the mechanism naturally turns off, preventing excessive hormone levels. Now, moving on to positive feedback as a whole, this is actually the dominant regulatory mechanism when it comes to reproductive hormones. It's interesting to note that rising testosterone, for example, can inhibit GnRH and LH secretion, which helps prevent overproduction. Similarly, inhibin, produced by Sertoli or granulosa cells, specifically suppresses FSH. And during the luteal phase, progesterone inhibits GnRH pulsatility, which prevents the recruitment of new follicles. All of this works together to maintain homeostasis within the reproductive system. It's a finely tuned balance between positive and negative feedback mechanisms, ensuring everything functions smoothly. Negative feedback, on the other hand, involves various mechanisms that keep hormone levels in check, preventing overactivation. In summary, these feedback mechanisms, both positive and negative, are essential for regulating reproductive hormones and maintaining reproductive health. Let's explore the key changes during puberty for both females and males. In females, you'll notice breast development, known as the larch, along with the growth of pubic hair and a significant growth spurt. Menarche, or the first period, typically occurs about 2 years after puberty begins. For males, puberty involves testicular enlargement, penile growth, development of pubic hair, deepening of the voice, and a growth spurt as well. Sperm arch, or the first ejaculation, marks a major milestone in male reproductive development. A crucial point to remember is that growth plates in the long bones close under the influence of estrogen in both sexes. This process ends linear growth, meaning height increase generally stops once these plates close. Full reproductive maturity is usually reached 3 to 5 years after the onset of puberty. Now let's talk about what triggers these changes. Puberty begins when the hypothalamus starts secreting more GnRH, reactivating the HPG axis that was suppressed during childhood. On average, puberty starts between ages 8 and 13 in females and 9 to 14 in males. Of course, this timing can vary based on genetics, nutrition, and body composition. Before gonadarch, which is the activation of the gonads, there's adrenarche. During adrenarche, the adrenal glands produce androgens like DHEA, leading to body odor and early pubic hair development. An exciting discovery is the role of kisspeptin neurons in the hypothalamus. These neurons are now recognized as key triggers for the onset of puberty, helping to initiate this complex process. Overall, puberty is a highly coordinated series of changes driven by hormonal signals, leading to reproductive maturity and the physical and emotional changes that come with it. The hypothalamic pituitary gonadal, or HPG, axis is really the central pathway that regulates reproduction. Think of the hypothalamus as the master controller. It's constantly integrating signals from the nervous system, the immune system, and the body's metabolic status. Based on all these inputs, it regulates reproductive function by releasing pulses of GnRH, which is the gonadotropin-releasing hormone. These pulses are crucial because they stimulate the pituitary to produce hormones that act on the gonads. Now, thyroid hormones also play a vital role in reproductive health. If someone has hypothyroidism, they might experience menstrual irregularities, problems with ovulation, and even a decline in semen quality. On the flip side, hyperthyroidism can actually speed up the onset of puberty. So, thyroid function directly influences reproductive timing and function. Insulin and other metabolic hormones are also key players. For example, insulin resistance, like what we see in PCOS, can really disrupt ovarian function. Leptin, which comes from fat tissue, signals to the hypothalamus about the body's nutritional status. That's why very low body fat can suppress menstruation, because the body perceives that there's not enough energy to support reproduction. Adrenal hormones are interconnected as well. The adrenal glands produce androgens such as DHEA and androstenedione, which can serve as precursors for both testosterone and estrogen. However, excess cortisol, often from chronic stress, can suppress GnRH pulsatility, thus impacting reproduction. Then we have hormones like oxytocin and prolactin. Oxytocin is responsible for stimulating uterine contractions during labor and milk ejection during breastfeeding. Prolactin, on the other hand, drives milk production and also suppresses ovulation during lactation, which is a natural way the body prevents pregnancy when breastfeeding. Melatonin, produced by the pineal gland, may influence reproductive seasonality and the timing of puberty. Interestingly, as melatonin levels decline during childhood, it appears to be associated with the onset of pubertal development. Overall, it's clear that the reproductive system is deeply interconnected with almost every other endocrine pathway in the body. This complex integration highlights how finely tuned and responsive our endocrine system is in regulating reproduction based on various internal and external cues. Let's talk about maintaining wellness and understanding the whole picture. When it comes to reproductive health, it's essential to see it as part of the bigger system. This means recognizing how various factors, physical, emotional, social, interact and influence overall well-being. System integration plays a key role here, as it encourages us to look beyond isolated issues and focus on a comprehensive approach. By doing so, we can better address the root causes and support healthier outcomes. This slide highlights the importance of viewing reproductive health not just as individual symptoms, but as interconnected components of a larger system. As we continue, remember that understanding this interconnectedness helps us make more effective, holistic decisions, ultimately leading to better wellness for everyone involved. Blood plays a crucial role in transporting reproductive hormones to their target tissues throughout the body, ensuring that these hormones can effectively regulate reproductive functions. The vascular supply to the uterus and placenta is especially critical during pregnancy, as it supports fetal development and sustains the pregnancy itself. During this time, blood volume increases significantly, by about 40 to 50%, to meet the higher demands of both the mother and the developing fetus. Erectile tissue function, for example, relies entirely on carefully controlled changes in blood flow. This highlights how vital the circulatory system is for reproductive processes. Moving on to the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system controls key aspects of sexual arousal, including erection and ejaculation, by regulating blood flow and neural signals. Meanwhile, the hypothalamus plays a central role by integrating emotional and environmental cues that influence reproductive behavior. Sensory nerves are also essential because they facilitate sexual responses and maternal-infant bonding, strengthening emotional connections and reproductive success. However, stress pathways, especially the HPA axis, can suppress reproductive functions when the body perceives stress, showing how interconnected stress and reproduction are. The nervous system also works closely with the HPG axis, which coordinates the release of reproductive hormones via the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. These hormones not only regulate reproduction, but also impact other systems like metabolism, bone density, and cardiovascular health. The thyroid and adrenal glands, for instance, have direct effects on fertility and menstrual cycles, while insulin sensitivity influences ovarian and testicular functions. Finally, the endocrine system's interactions extend beyond just reproductive hormones. It integrates with other body systems to maintain overall health and reproductive capability. All these connections highlight how complex and interconnected reproductive health truly is, emphasizing the importance of a well-functioning circulatory, nervous, and endocrine system to support reproduction at every level. Let's talk about some key factors that influence reproductive health. First, nutrition plays a vital role. Folate, or vitamin B9, is especially important early in pregnancy because it helps prevent neural tube defects. Iron is also crucial, as it supports the increased blood volume that happens during pregnancy. Vitamin D deficiency has been linked to reduced fertility in both men and women, so maintaining adequate levels is important. Additionally, antioxidants like vitamins C, E, and selenium help protect gametes from oxidative stress, which can damage reproductive cells. Moving on to the environment, exposure to endocrine-disrupting chemicals found in plastics, pesticides, and personal care products can interfere with hormone function, either mimicking or blocking natural hormones. Occupational exposures to heavy metals, solvents, or radiation can also impair fertility. Air pollution has been associated with poorer semen quality and ovarian function, which is concerning. Even heat exposure from activities like hot tubs or keeping laptops on your lap can temporarily reduce sperm production, so it's something to be mindful of. In terms of lifestyle, regular exercise supports hormonal balance, but overdoing it can have the opposite effect, like suppressing menstruation. A balanced diet that includes adequate folate, zinc, iron, and omega-3 fatty acids helps promote fertility. Getting enough sleep, around 7 to 9 hours per night, is essential for proper hormone regulation. And of course, avoiding tobacco, excess alcohol, and recreational drugs is critical because these can negatively impact gamete quality. Overall, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, being mindful of environmental exposures, and supporting proper nutrition are all interconnected pieces that play significant roles in optimizing reproductive health. Now, let's talk about some key prevention strategies for maintaining reproductive health. Regular screenings and checkups are essential because they help in early detection of potential issues, which can make a big difference in treatment outcomes. Maintaining a healthy body weight is also crucial, as it supports hormonal balance and fertility. Practicing safe sex and getting regular STI screenings can prevent infections that might otherwise lead to complications down the line. Additionally, managing chronic stress through mindfulness, exercise, and adequate rest is important because stress can impact the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, or HPG axis, which regulates reproductive hormones. Moving on to common conditions, polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, affects about 6 to 12% of women. It's a hormonal disorder characterized by irregular periods, excess androgens, and ovarian cysts. Endometriosis involves endometrial tissue growing outside the uterus, which can cause significant pain and may impair fertility. Hypogonadism, on the other hand, is when the gonads don't produce enough hormones, affecting development and reproductive capacity in both men and women. Finally, sexually transmitted infections, or STIs, can lead to inflammation, scarring, and even infertility if left untreated. Recognizing these common conditions and understanding prevention strategies is vital as we work towards overall reproductive health and well-being. The reproductive system is quite unique among body systems. It's actually not essential for an individual's immediate survival, but it plays a crucial role in the survival of our species. This interesting paradox really places reproduction at the heart of evolutionary biology. Reproductive health, in fact, serves as a kind of window into our overall health. For example, irregular menstrual cycles might signal underlying issues like thyroid problems, stress, or nutritional deficiencies. Similarly, erectile dysfunction can be a sign of cardiovascular issues or diabetes. So often, reproductive symptoms are early warning signs that something else might be going on in the body. Throughout our lives, the reproductive system undergoes some dramatic changes. It begins with fetal development of gonads, then moves into a quiet phase during childhood. When puberty hits, the system is activated again, leading to peak reproductive years. As women approach menopause or men experience a gradual decline in androgens, sometimes called andropause, these phases mark significant transitions. Modern reproductive health understanding emphasizes a biopsychosocial approach. That means we recognize biological factors are important, but so are psychological well-being and social influences. All these elements combine to shape reproductive outcomes and ultimately our overall quality of life. Environmental and epigenetic factors can also influence reproductive health across generations. For instance, maternal nutrition, stress levels, and chemical exposures during pregnancy can impact the reproductive health of future offspring. This highlights how interconnected our environment and genetics are in shaping health. A comprehensive approach to reproductive health involves understanding anatomy and physiology, of course, but also recognizing how hormones influence the entire body. It's equally important to adopt healthy lifestyle practices and seek medical guidance when needed. Ultimately, by integrating knowledge from all these areas, we gain a complete perspective on human reproduction, understanding not just the biological processes, but how they are influenced by psychological and social factors. This holistic view helps us appreciate the complexity and importance of reproductive health throughout our lives. As we wrap up this course, let's take a moment to look at the big picture. System integration, wellness factors, and a holistic understanding are essential for a complete view of reproductive health. It's not just about individual parts, but how everything works together to support overall well-being. Moving through the course, we've covered key topics like reproductive health, which includes feedback mechanisms, puberty, and endocrine integration. These are vital for understanding how the body maintains balance. We also looked at hormonal regulation, which governs processes like sperm and egg formation, fertilization, and early development, crucial steps in reproduction. Then, we explored female anatomy, including ovaries, the uterus, the menstrual cycle, and hormonal control, integral for understanding female reproductive health. On the male side, we examined testes, the duct system, accessory glands, and testosterone, highlighting the male reproductive system's structure and function. Finally, we focused on system overview, covering foundations, terminology, and system-level understanding. These form the groundwork for everything else. All of these components interconnect to give us a holistic view of reproductive health, emphasizing the importance of integrating biological, hormonal, and wellness factors for a comprehensive understanding.